It's Thursday, November 16th, 2017, and we're in North Vernon, Indiana. Our reason for being here? Well, North Vernon was a pit stop during our journey to the coal fields of Kentucky and Virginia. Our film crew was traveling to the Clinchfield Railroad to cover the 75th anniversary run of the Santa train later that same weekend, and decided to catch some mainline action on the former Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Indiana subdivision before continuing further south. With a population of just under 7,000, North Vernon is your typical southern Indiana town. Downtown is rustic, with many unique shops and restaurants open for business. On this cold and dreary day, we would witness CSX Manifest Train Q50416 traveling east on the former B&O main line as it made its way through North Vernon. The Q504 is a daily manifest train that utilizes the Louisville and Indiana Railroad from Louisville, Kentucky to Seymour, Indiana, where it then turns to run eastbound over the B&O to Cincinnati. While eastbound trains between Louisville and Cincinnati utilize the B&O line, the westbound trains between the two cities utilize the LCL subdivision between Covington and Louisville, Kentucky. Just west of the small community of HOLTON, Indiana, we caught the train atop a high steel bridge over the MUSCATATUCK River. This would be the last location we caught train Q504 before calling it a day, deciding to rendezvous with some friends in Cincinnati for the evening. On Friday the 17th, we ventured to the site of the former Jefferson Proving Ground north of Madison, Indiana. There, a train crew from the city-owned Madison Railroad were preparing to depart the Proving Ground with 3 coaches and a caboose for the short line's annual Santa trains out of North Vernon that very weekend. With the railroad's shop and small yard being located within the Proving Ground, one of the railroad's business models is car storage, and it's evident by the many stored freight cars spread out on various tracks throughout the property. We gained special access to the Madison Railroad and were grateful for their hospitality, who went as far as allowing us to place a camera on the locomotive as it made its journey to North Vernon. The Madison Railroad's number 3 is an SW 1500 locomotive that was built in 1970 by the Electro-Motive division of General Motors for the Toledo, Peoria, and Western Railroad. The locomotive spent its time in yard and local freight service before being acquired by NASA in 1984, where it would spend the next 30 years moving space shuttle components around NASA property at Cape Canaveral, Florida. In 2015, the Madison Railroad acquired the locomotive. Today, the number 3 still wears the NASA Railroad paint scheme with a unique Madison Railroad logo that features the space shuttle. We've included a short clip from the Kennedy Space Center's YouTube channel that showcases the number 3's truck replacement from the year 2012.
When one of NASA's railroad locomotives needed a newer set of wheels, a one-of-a-kind facility built for the Space Shuttle program made the upgrade possible. Kennedy Space Center's Rotation, Processing, and Surge Facility, or RPSF, was built in 1984 to handle the shuttle's massive solid rocket motor segments, which came in by rail.
That's essentially how it worked for 30 years. This facility has never lifted or done anything other than shuttle segments and shuttle part.
The NASA Railroad team refurbished locomotive number 3 years ago, and it handles much of the post-shuttle train work around Kennedy. But locomotive number 2 had newer wheel and axle assemblies called trucks. Railroad officials decided it would be best to swap trucks between those 2 locomotives.
We want to use the best equipment and the most environmentally friendly equipment as we can on the locomotives that we are going to be actually using.
Each of NASA's 3 locomotives weigh more than 79 tons, not counting the trucks, which add another 44 tons. With pristine rails running straight through the high bay and 2 heavy lift cranes overhead, the RPSF was perfect for the railroad's needs. The agency's Ground Systems Development and Operations Program approved the plan and cleared the facility for the job. Locomotive number 1 positioned the other 2 directly beneath the 400-ton overhead cranes inside the RPSF high bay, then retreated to a position just outside the door. The trucks of locomotives 2 and 3 were locked into place. The closely choreographed lift operation took place the following day, with the bodies of locomotives 2 and 3 lifted one at a time and placed on opposite trucks. As Kennedy Space Center moves into the future, the spaceport is broadening its focus to accommodate NASA rockets such as the upcoming Space Launch System, as well as commercial launch vehicles. Use of the RPSF to assist the NASA Railroad demonstrates the adaptability of the center's unique facilities and workforce.
Back on the Madison Railroad, the train continued traveling west to the main line. After leaving the Proving Ground, the deadhead move would become a mixed train, when the crew added one empty plastics hopper to the rear of the consist for interchange with CSX at North Vernon. After tying on to the lone hopper, the train would begin its journey. At DuPont, Indiana, the crew would stop the train for lunch at the J&R Corner Store. The line from Madison to North Vernon is incredibly scenic, with many high bridges and winding curves that span several creeks and the MUSCATATUCK River between the two small towns. The first bridge on the journey north is over Middle Fork Creek. At 180 feet long, the bridge is 71 feet high and was part of a line upgrade in 2011. We caught the northbound train at another high concrete bridge, but this time over Big Creek. This bridge was built in 2011 and is 73 feet high and 192 feet long. The roadbed on which the Madison Railroad operates traces its history back to some of the earliest railway companies in Indiana history. First established by the Madison, Indianapolis, and Lafayette Railroad in 1843, the line eventually became part of the Jeffersonville, Madison, and Indianapolis Railroad by 1866. In 1890, the JM&I was part of a merger creating the Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Chicago, and St. Louis Railway, which was controlled by the Pennsylvania Railroad. Passing down through various Pennsylvania subsidiaries, it ended up getting caught in the eventual successor Penn Central's 1970 bankruptcy. The portion of track between North Vernon and Madison was not included in the 1975 final system plan for Conrail, which was to take over the Penn Central and several other bankrupt railways in 1976. Facing the complete loss of rail access to Madison, the city's Port Authority stepped in and eventually purchased that section of the line. They now continue to operate it as the Madison Railroad. At DuPont, the train came to a stop for a crew lunch break. Our film crew also took advantage of this time to eat and were quite impressed with the service and quality of food from J&R's Country Grocery Store. For being a small community grocer, they had a great selection of food and the pizza was fantastic. We would continue to follow the train north, setting up at several rural grade crossings along the way before capturing the train over another high concrete bridge over the MUSCATATUCK River just south of Vernon, Indiana. As the train approached Vernon, the crew stopped just short of the MUSCATATUCK River Bridge because a local dog had decided to take a nap on the tracks. The crew gave the dog a chance to move out of the way before continuing north. Luckily for this pup, the Madison Railroad doesn't travel faster than 10 miles per hour, giving the crew plenty of time to stop. Once the dog had moved to safety, the train continued on its way to North Vernon. The MUSCATATUCK River is a nearly 60-mile system in southern Indiana that was once a navigable waterway until the 1830s, when dirt-filled deposits made the river too shallow for barge shipments. Here, a concrete bridge spans the river, standing at 83 feet tall and 144 feet long. Just beyond the first bridge, a second steel bridge spans over the river at 78 feet high and 189 feet long. Arriving at North Vernon, the number 3 would wait at Buckeye Street to the south of the CSX Diamond on the Indiana subdivision. Also in North Vernon was the Madison Railroad's second train crew, who were utilizing Paducah GP10 number 3634 to service a local customer. One of the unique features of North Vernon is the tilting target signal that guards the diamond between the Madison Railroad and the Indiana subdivision. In this era of modernized railroading, seeing such an ancient signal in service was fascinating. While the Madison's crews waited on both sides of the diamond, CSX manifest train Q574-17 slowly made its way east through town with a few extra offline locomotives in the consist. After the Q574 was clear of the block, the 3634 and crew moved to the northeast connection so that the number 3 could cross the diamond and utilize the connection for changing ends of the passenger consist. With the tilting target signal in the vertical position, the number 3 and crew proceeded north. After the mixed freight cleared the diamond, the 3634 would tie on to the plastics hopper and pull the train clear of the switch, so that the number 3 could reposition for the Santa train's southbound weekend runs. The crew of the 3634 would then shove back into position, uncouple the hopper from the caboose, and then proceed down the connection, where they would wait for the number 3's crew to cross the diamond once again before shoving west over the B&O. Once the number 3 had tied on to the former Canadian National caboose, the crew then proceeded to guide the train back over the diamond, where the train would then be tied down at the platform for the upcoming weekend's Santa trains. After the 3634 and crew had returned from the CSX yard to the west of town, they would cross the diamond once again before utilizing the connection to head back north of town. The crew of the lone Paducah Jeep would spend the rest of the afternoon switching out Hylex Poly, a packaging manufacturer that specializes in plastic and paper products. This would conclude our day on the Madison Railroad as we continued south for the Clinchfield Railroad's Santa train. Thank you for watching Delay in Block Productions. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website at delayinblock.com.